have roll call.
Director Adams.
Here.
Director Byrne. Here. Director Rubio.
Here.
Director Clark.
Here.
Director Brower.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Here.
And Director Evans.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Next, if I would have Director Byrne lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Byrne. Were there any additions or corrections to the agenda? I see we had one where we added item number 11 on Friday, or item in between 13 and 14.
That's the only change, no changes.
Okay. So with that, we will move to oral communication. Anyone wishing to address the board on the consent calendar, informational items, closed session items, or matters not listed on the agenda may do so during oral communications. Please limit your comment to 3 minutes. The public may comment on all other matters at the time they are presented to the board. Any public comment?
Good evening, Board. My name is Phyllis Muir. If passed, Measure J calls for a feasibility study on a public takeover of Cal-Am. In an October 10th letter to the editor in the Herald, Tony Seaton wrote, quote, "Let Dave Stolt of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District handle the study," end quote. Another letter from Mr. Seaton in the Weekly on October 11th stated, quote, "Measure J would put the issue under the scrutiny of Dave Stolt," end quote, and identifies Mr. Stolt as, quote, "a man of unquestioned integrity." In an October 11th Herald article on candidates for your board, Mr. Clark and Mr. Provence mentioned the need for the district's objectivity on Measure J and the feasibility study. I had no inclination to share publicly information that I have had since October 3rd. But these letters to the editor and the news article prompt my appearance here tonight. As a private citizen, I have advocated a no vote on Measure J and made ads highlighting two true facts. One, the court said Measure J could not use the words cost saving in its title. And two, voters will not be able to vote on a takeover once the feasibility study is completed. So I want to read to you an email sent to my husband Fred on October 3rd. Quote, "Hi Fred, saw your wife's TV ad. Sorry to suggest that she is a pawn and misinformed, but that is obviously the point of this email. So sorry to see your family's impartial history now biased," end quote. This email was sent by Mr. Stolt on his personal email, but later copied by him to your board's paid PR contractor and a staff member. If this email had come from anyone on the Yes on J side, I would have ignored it. But Mr. Stolt and his agency, your agency, have official and critical roles if Measure J passes. I have copies for you of all the emails exchanged after Mr. Stolt initiated this. This district's objectivity and neutrality are critical. Mr. Stolt has, by his own action, put his and perhaps this district's neutrality into serious doubt. Your board and the voters need to be aware of this and vote and act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment?
It takes so long. Cast of thousands here tonight. Tom Rowley, representing Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association. Our board took a very, very, very close look at Measure J, and as we all know, the devil is in the details. Basically, we're very disappointed to see that a lot of elected officials, including our state senator, our state assemblyman, our supervisor, and other candidates running, at least in Monterey, have not read the details that Measure J, without defining feasibility, essentially is a blank check. The Monterey County Weekly described the Measure J in its edition last week as a crafty piece of legislation or initiative. Actually, quite frankly, it is a devious piece of proposed legislation. Again, it's a blank check in its current form, and our board has strongly recommended that Measure J not be passed by the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley.
Hi, I'm Paul Bruno, a resident of Monterey. Two things. One, I wanted to express some disappointment with an ad that was run in the Monterey County Weekly. The Monterey Peninsula Water Management District ran a full-page ad talking about the decades of excellence and other things promoting the district. The timing of it is such that I would consider it a political piece. I know both sides of the campaign are saying different things, but I had hoped that the district itself, with public funds, would have stayed out of it. But I think this ad is political, and it's unfortunate, but it's been done. Second, I want to thank Bob Brower. I know later they're going to commend you, but Bob, you've been a good friend. You have served this community really well. You've given a lot of yourself for it for a lot of years, and sometimes people don't express that appreciation, and I want you to know that you are appreciated. Earlier today, I reached out to you to find out what your favorite charity is, and local charity. And on behalf of the Bruno Terramina family, we made a donation to the hospice here in Monterey, and in recognition of your service to the community. So a card from our family, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Any other public comment?
Alvin Edwards, running for Division 1 Seaside Water Management District. First of all, I'd like to thank Bob Brower. Director Brower, thank you for your 11 years of service on the water supply, from the aquifer storage and pure water Monterey. I was serving on the board with you, and you have seen those through, that we see wells going into the ground for pure water Monterey. You completed phase 1 and phase 2 of the Carmel River aquifer and storage, and I appreciate that. I really do. I'm going to miss you, because you were really about water. Next, I'd like to thank the Water Management District Board of Directors and the staff for the facts sheet about the district in Monterey County Weekly. That was good. You've been attacked. You've been attacked. So you answer, and people are upset because you answer. A lot of people don't know the facts of what this district undone. The 7,300 acre feet of water that Bob Breyer helped and you all helped put in the ground to try to get us from 9510. I'm thankful. I'm thankful that you're carrying on. And last but least, there'll be a public water now town hall meeting in Seaside on Tuesday, October the 23rd, 7 a.m. at the American Legion Post, 7 p.m. at 1000 Playa Avenue in Seaside. I hope you all come and hear the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Good evening, Chair and District Directors. My name is Jody Hanson. I'm the President and CEO of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber. Our chamber took a position to vote no on Measure J. We believe there are way too many questions that are out there. This measure has been written in a way which is put out a lot of misinformation that had to be corrected. And we see that we're not talking about affordability anymore, but we still see the Public Water Now signs up at homes that have been up for over a year saying, want affordable water? There is a association with Public Water Now and affordability, which doesn't exist in Measure J. And you're going to be making a decision on whether or not there is feasibility and affordability. I don't believe that's possible, given that renting is a lot less expensive than owning. And I look at This board has to have ethics in all that it does, and I hope that you will have that in mind as you make your decisions going forward. At the ballot box, actually. And Bob, I do appreciate all that you've done for this board. We didn't have a water project until you were on it that actually brought some water to town. And I think that that's what we have to look to. Your model has been great, and we thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Good evening, Judy Lehman, Chair Clark and members of the board. I too would like to thank Bob Brower for his dedicated years of service. It was an absolute pleasure working with you and serving with you, and it was an honor to see the things that you have accomplished. I remember well the time that you stood up with great glee and said 1,000 acre-feet from the ASR, and the next year I think we had 1,200 acre-feet from the ASR. So we know that that was a prize that was well fought and well deserved. Thank you very much for your service, and best to you.
Okay, any other public comment? With that, we'll close public comment. Moving to our next item, the consent calendar. So it's routine items. Any board members want to pull any items?
I would like to pull 3 for questions.
Okay.
I would like to pull 7.
Okay. I'm going to pull items 3 and 7. Any others from the board? Staff have anything? Okay, does the public have any items they wish pulled? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items 3 and 7.
Second.
So motion Brower, second Byrne. I'm sorry, motion Rubio. Second Byrne. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let's start with number 3, Ms. Adams.
Thank you. I was concerned when I read the staff report on item 3, particularly the line in the second paragraph under the summary that says that Calumet Fourth District, they would prefer the well be put back together without the cleaning process due to the need of the source for the system in a timely manner. And I guess I have 2 questions. One is, what do we know really about the condition of all of the wells that we have? And then secondly, it kind of troubles me if we're putting the delivery of water over the safety and quality of water, and I just wanted to know if this is a normal procedure.
Good evening, members of the board. At that time, when we go through the quarterly budget process, we describe where and when we need to pull the water out of the aquifer system and the Monterey Peninsula Water Resources System. And at that time, the Peralta well was not available for service, so the ASR1 well, which is our only well that has a Department of Drinking Water permit issued for it. We're in the process of getting permits for 2, 3, and 4. That well, throughout the process, as the staff note says, we noticed that it was not acting as it should be. It was outside of spec. And so we had the well taken apart and found out that the valve was damaged beyond field repair. And so the valve was then sent back. The whole initial thought was to pull the valve up to the surface, fix the valve, and reinstall it. But it became evident that that was not able to happen. So instead, while the decision was being made to send the valve back to the manufacturer to see if it could be fixed, the answer came back that it was cheaper to buy a new valve. So the decision was made at that time that the priority of having a source to the system, because Peralta was not in service, was more important than waiting to reassemble the valve and install it, because we're given a lead time of over 12 months to reconstruct a new valve. And so, as to your question of do we know the status of the rest of the wells, we actually do, because ASR1 was drilled in 2001 and was an experimental well to test the feasibility of ASR. since it was determined feasible, the other wells 2, 3, and 4 were built with higher grade stainless steel, so they wouldn't have this problem. They were built with a different version of technology of the injection valve. So actually, the valve down 1 would have needed to be replaced anyways in a capital improvement plan. So it just kind of broke, and then it was determined that it needed to be fixed. And so I guess the decision point you're asking about was to get the source back online, because we didn't have redundant sources in the Seaside Basin at that time.
So I guess my concern is if we didn't clean it up, if we just put it back, and if it was was it rusted, you know?
Yeah, because the plan was to pull it up, fix the valve, and put it back. It wasn't to pull it up and then have the lube system sit on the ground for a week while we were waiting for an answer. And so we thought, well, we could put it back, but then the driller, of course, was saying, well, we would recommend taking it and cleaning it just so that it would work. But our engineer of the ASR program said, no, it should be fine. We should be able to reinstall this. So we went with that, and it took us, a day or two to get it back up and running.
And we had no other choice as far as other wells that could be tapped rather than using this one that could possibly have been corroded and
the lubes
turning out like flint?
No, the lube system is actually separated from the water that it's producing, so that was not a concern. And the answer was no, we did not have another redundant source in order to recover the water that was decided. The decision was made that because the quarterly water budget group and the board had decided that the priority was pulling out the ASR water that was banked, and we were coming towards the close of a water year. That source was the priority, to keep that source online.
Is it normal for this sort of thing to happen?
This is
Or was this a first
No,
time
I've been
ever
here in a
since
decade. That's the first
2000?
time I've seen it, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you for your response.
Sure.
It still causes me a little bit of unease, but thank you for your response.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Approval. Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Okay, item 7, Director Lewis.
I have questions about this item simply because it seems that we give a lot of money to the district for these improvements, and living right across the street from from MLK, I worry that our money isn't going where we want it to go. So I have questions and hesitation about automatically approving money to do things like plant dead trees, which is what I've seen in the past. So I'm wondering, do we have any kind of controls over these expenses once we award the money? Do we look at where the money goes, or?
Well, and in terms of the demonstration garden, we've been directly involved in that. We've had classes at the site where we've been teaching the public about sheet mulching, about preparing rainwater harvesting and that kind of thing. The MLK site, and I'm sorry, I don't know about the dead trees, but the MLK site is a large project, and it was started more than a year ago as a demonstration garden for the community because it's in a very visible location. It is only partially done at this time and features things such as the drought-tolerant plants, rainwater infiltration features, rainwater harvesting, drip irrigation, and interpretive signage. And at this point, the signage isn't up. They took out a large patch of juniper bushes, which had been well established at the school on Broadway, which were probably planted when the school was built in the 60s. And so right now the hillside is just mulched. There's still a lot of work to be done. And I think we do have some oversight on this. Obviously, these are our funds going into it, and we want this to be something that's a benefit to the community. So if you've seen dead plants, I think by the time we finish this project, it should be in great shape because the whole point is to educate the community.
And
Could
Director
you-
Lewis, also, we're working, they'll be working with the Return of the Natives group out of CSUMB, so what you should see is more climate appropriate and condition appropriate, rather than some deciduous trees that are poorly maintained.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused about the demonstration gardens versus the work that's been done on the front of the school.
The front of the school is a demonstration area because it offers different types of water conservation methodologies. But, and the school's also done a lot of other things in their courtyards and elsewhere. But the front part will eventually be completed this year with this money, with interpretive signage so people can come and see how to, what different types of features there are and how those features save water.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One addition, when this was brought to Water Demand Committee in September and was approved, there was a second request by MPWMD that was not approved. So we don't just rubber stamp these.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on item 7?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Director Burns, second by Director Adams. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to the presentation to Robert S. Brower, Senior, Director, Division 5, in recognition for 11 years of service on the Board of Directors. So I'd like to start it off and then we'll go around. So I want to thank you for your 4 years of mentorship and leadership to me personally, and having you as, I guess, my left-hand guy for the past year has been tremendous, because as soon as I have a question, I say, Bob, what do I do? And he always has an answer. So I want to thank you for your service and wish you the best in retirement.
Thank you very much.
So I'll start down there with Ms. Adams.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for your kindness. When we went to Washington together, neither of us knew one another very much, other than by reputation, which was not always the best. And by the time we left Washington, I felt like I had made such a great pal. And every time I see you, I'm just delighted. I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for all that you've done for the people of Monterey County, particularly the 5th District. And I just really appreciate and value you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
And of course, I think we're all going to express the same kind of sentiment, but Bob, you've absolutely been integral in moving water projects forward. The Water Supply Committee, which you established and got moving, has benefited this community and will continue to. We just appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie.
We haven't sat on this board very long together, but I know
We've known
Bob.
each other for a long time.
Yeah, we have, and what really stands out to me is the enthusiasm you bring to this board on these issues. You're really a good advocate, and you're not afraid to say what you mean. And I think that's valuable these days, to take a stand and be counted. And you've done that, and it shows in the water projects and the things that have happened here at district and throughout the county. And, everybody knows your affinity for wine, so I don't know why you mess with the water when you can have the wine.
You need a little bit of water.
Need a little bit of wine. Well, good. Well, I just appreciate all your service and wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bob, I want to say when I came on this board, everybody everybody else on the board had been on the board for quite some time, and so I felt very intimidated. But you were intimidating, but you took me under your wing and really helped me learn to fly here, and I greatly appreciate your guidance and helping me find my place and getting my feet under me. And then as I've gotten to know you as a person, I just think you're phenomenal, and I am going to miss you terribly when you are off in retirement. I hope you'll come back and visit and sit on the other side of the table and keep us company again. So thank you for everything that you've taught me, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stoll?
Well, I think you have something to present.
Yes, I do. So to commemorate your years of service from 2007 to 2018, your 11 years of service, we have this beautiful picture of the Carmel River for you. So
Awesome.
thank you again. You can put that on a nice shelf.
So, as was alluded to, being a wine guy, we do have two very nice engraved Waterford wine tumblers for you that didn't get here in time, so we'll send those to you. But we do have one other thing we want to tell you about. This is not going with you, but this is now the Robert S. Brower Golden Shovel. And it's already had a little bit of adventure because we know how oriented you are to getting things built. And so we're going to retain this here, and every time there's a water supply project or anything related, we'll go up to the Calamity D-cell site and turn a shovel full of dirt, take a photograph. And we've got a little presentation kind of reflect the Robert S. Brower Golden Shovel Tour. So Bob has a lot of interests, driving fast cars, looking at fast cars, going to Packers games with some of his buddies, and obviously wine from his former company. But when it came to the water board, Bob's interest was singular. That was to see something get built. And he had a little interest in nomenclature and how to name things as well, which has gone around and around, but you know, it was mentioned here tonight, getting phase 1 of aquifer storage and recovery in full production, and obviously phase 2. The signage has changed, but there's the first step of the Robert S. Brower Golden Shovel Tour. And I'll let you know, we're just mobilizing on the backflush pit expansion. They're out there doing vegetation management today, and so there's a project that you helped envision and is well on its way. In this particular instance, you were speaking about the future of water. And there's the second stop on the Memorial Shovel, or not Memorial, Golden Shovel Tour. Welcome to the future of water. And this is what it looks like today. This is from this morning. That's all the activity taking place at the Advanced Water Purification site at the regional wastewater treatment facility. Here's another stop on the Golden Shovel Tour. This is the San Pablo entrance to the Pure Water Monterey injection well site. And you can barely see a stack of, up in there, that's a stack of pipe. And there's one of the injection wells going in. And right down in that little chaparral is a backflush pit for the Pure Water Monterey. And of course, the shovel. And you can see that the end of the shovel is very close to our logo, right there. And of course, as was mentioned by Director Adams, the trips back to DC, working on our legislative delegation and trying to bring some federal dollars back. You were a leader there. I was going to show the picture of you with Jeff Denham, but you and Jimmy are kind of the same height. It looks better this way. And of course, some of the other directors on the same trip. And then finally showing what a diplomat you can be, that you can actually cross barriers. I guess wine knocks down all barriers, right? So anyway, we will miss you from a staff standpoint and your colleagues on the board as well as past colleagues. And thank you for 11 years of service.
All I can say is I'm deeply humbled. Oops, hold on. There we go. Killed it. All I can say is I'm deeply humbled by the expressions that I've heard tonight. And of course, the Bob Brower shovel. I love this community, and I've always wanted to get something accomplished
with water, and water supply has been my baby for 11 years. And to see it come to fruition has been just a dream, and in actuality getting it done. But you know, some of it was the hard work of not only Dave Stolt, but Jeannie Byrne and myself sitting with the farmers and actually working all of this out so that we could, you know, cross the lettuce curtain and actually make all of this work. And that required a lot of time, a lot of meetings, a lot of trust, and a lot of good people that we met for a long period of time, and it all came together. So, you know, Monterey County is one county, and we've proven that it can be one county, and we can all work together to achieve the ends that we wanted. And I'm just pleased as all can be to see this come to fruition, and I hope I get an invite when the final, you know, ready to turn on that tap, or at least the 5 or 6 times we're going to have that, you know, tap turn on, and to see it all actually happen. So I'm thrilled. But again, thank you all very much. Thank the board members very much, and I appreciate it just being here.
Okay, thank you, Bob. We'll move on to item number 14 for our general manager's report.
Thank you. I will try to be brief so we can move on to some other business, but starting with, so this is the close of the water year, so some of these numbers are important. This is the actual versus target production. Carmel River Basin came in significantly under target by 653 acre feet. But the other two sub-areas of the Seaside Groundwater Basin were over. The net result, of course, is that we ended up under for the total resource system, but over last year. What this means from a CDO standpoint is the effective diversion limit under the cease and desist order is 8,310 acre feet. Sand City desal production to date is 190, which offsets that diversion limit. ASR recovered beyond what's injected, 688 acre feet. And then the actual 12 months from the Carmel River shows that we've overperformed or came in 567 acre feet under what would have been our regulatory limit on the river itself. So that's a good sign. And, and the carryover credit, it'll get recalculated when California American submits its fourth quarter report for the water year, but would say that we're close in the ballpark. If there's ever a missed milestone under the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project, and we're now in that mode of having lost 1,000 acre feet, then the carryover credits have some benefit in that instance. So we've been keeping an eye on what the carryover credits look like. This will be the third year of carryover credit calculation, I believe. The other water projects, I mentioned Sand City. It was off only 15 acre feet of production, and there's still some discharge water quality issues. And there's discussion about new wells for intake, which would change the characteristics of the water for discharge as well. So that's in progress. The Table 13 water rights actual turned out, it was not as wet a winter as the previous year, so the amount of withdrawals that could be designated as Table 13 was a smaller number than would have been in a normal year. And then production for customer service. Again, this is one of 3 different calculations you might see. We tend to calculate everything at the well. CalAm produces numbers for their website, which is production for delivery to the system, but it would be after the Begonia iron removal plant. So there's always nuances, but we've traditionally used this as the measure of customer demand because it reflects, for example, ASR recovery that's going into the system as opposed to withdrawals from the river for ASR injection. This is more representative of the water being delivered to the system for customer use. And a couple things here, you look at Carmel River Basin, it's higher over last year. The Seaside Basin, also higher over last year. ASR recovery is lower because we didn't have as great an ASR year. Table 13 is lower, as I mentioned on the previous chart. And then Sand City's a little off. So the lows offset the highs, but what's interesting here is the total for the year, the 9,976 acre feet, is about 200 or 328 over last year. And you remember the first quarter report, we were about 300 over last year because of the fires in Sonoma and Napa, and then the fires in Southern California, and no snow at Tahoe. So that first jump in consumer demand that we saw as a result of those activities remained through the whole year. Everything else is kind of the same. And this is production for customer service for the last 10 years. So beginning in 2009, the period of the cease and desist order. Total that year was just under 13,000 acre feet of demand. And as I mentioned, the 9,976, just under 10,000. So we've seen even though you've seen a little bit of an uptick from 17, it represents a 3,000 acre foot improvement in demand since the issuance of the CDO. Rainfall, at this time of year, there's not much else to report. We ended up with 13.5 inches, actually 13.52, which it's 64% of long-term average. So that would make us a dry year by precipitation measurement. And then an unimpaired flow, we're a little better off. We're at below normal based on the way we designate on the historical record. And we ended up at 48% of long-term average. On fish rescues, we've had rescues of just under 5,000, and the tagging has been about 2,400 of those rescued. So all in all, a very slightly below normal water year. The unimpaired flow, of course, represents both vegetation issues related to the fires from a year ago, as well as really good precipitation a year ago. And nevertheless, we've had a little bit of rain already, and so hopefully we'll head into the next water year. They talk about El Nino. We have no idea, so we'll just see what happens. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move to the attorney's report, item number 15, on our closed session from 5:30.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, members of the board and the public. The board did meet in closed session at 5:30 to consider existing litigation and threatened litigation. The specific reportable topics were the application of California American Water Company before the Public Utilities Commission for the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project, and two matters that have been filed before the California Supreme Court, Marina Coast Water District versus PUC, and the City of Marina versus the Public Utilities Commission. And those have both been consolidated under case S 25-1935. The board was provided status reports, and direction was provided unanimously by the board to intervene in this action, in both actions. The motion was made by Mr. Brower, second by Mr. Rubio, and as I stated, the action was unanimous. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 16, director's reports, including AB 123 reports on trips, conferences, and attendance at meetings.
Nothing to report.
All right. We'll move on to, we have no public hearings, so we'll move on to action items. Item number 17, consider determination of special circumstances for 125 Ocean View Boulevard, Pacific Grove, California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, when a commercial project comes before us, we evaluate the project in a pre-project and post-project framework, and we assign factors related to the types of uses on that site from Table 2 of our Rule 24B. Upon occasion, we've had developers tell us that the table factors would unduly overstate the water use, that they've either got a unique or innovative approach. We did this in Sunrise Assisted Living a number of years ago. We did it just 2 years ago for MST for their renovation here in the Ryan Ranch, where we say, okay, we understand what you're saying based on a engineering report. We do see that there are opportunities here to use less water in a fashion different than what our factors might have produced. Therefore, we'll put you on secret double probation and we'll review actual water records. And if in fact you stay within the confines of the limit, then you have permission to proceed. If you exceed the limit, then we'll debit the jurisdictional allocation at that time. So the finding of special circumstances at this point for a project where we've not actually examined a consultant's report or plans is done in order so they know what the playing field is going forward. And we would in effect be saying, based on the unique or innovative approaches that you're offering, we agree that you might outperform the factors in Table 2. And if you produce such a report and it gives us enough comfort, then we'll proceed to issue your water permit. In your supplemental packet, on the third page is some text, and this is a proposed condition for this finding of special circumstances, should you decide to vote in that direction, which in effect puts the onus back on to the developer to do one or a combination of these several different approaches to the construction that would save potable water on the site, and the plans then would have to reflect those proposals, at which time we would be in a position to issue a water permit under the designation of special circumstances. And we do have representatives of both the owner and the project developer here today.
Okay. Does the board have any questions first?
So I have a question. We don't currently have any water use standards for things like gray water use, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
So this would maybe have an opportunity to establish something like that?
It might be as we get more of a body of work to see what can be done. You know, what happens is as technologies change and then we adopt a standard, there are fewer and fewer opportunities to come in for special circumstances once you squeeze everything into standards. But that's kind of what we've been doing. You know, there's been opportunities for residential credits that have been lost as we've made things standard. We've got the same thing going in commercial now where standards will be in place. And so in the past, for example, they've been able to come in and say, hey, if I do this, can I have a credit? And then we make it a standard. And, you know how it works. But yeah, so this would be an opportunity to look at some of the potential results on double plumbed gray water or rainwater catchment, sure.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Could you explain again why we're looking at this before seeing a report on what type of water saving ideas they have?
Yeah, it's a little bit of just cart and horse issues. If you want to instruct somebody to undertake the expenditure of significant dollars on a report, not knowing that the board's going to grant special circumstances if the report supports that, the preference here would be, and let me back up too, this is the second developer. If there's a third, we want to be, or a fourth, sorry guys, we want to be in a position to say this is the path that this parcel will move forward on, expend the funds on a report, deliver the report, we'll review it. If we don't buy it, then you don't get your water permit. That's always been kind of the condition, but it's basically to set a set of ground rules so they can move forward, knowing what standard they'll be held to.
Have we given special circumstances before seeing a report to the other items you've mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. And the last question I have is what remains of Pacific Grove's allocation if you did have to debit it down the line? How much do they
Well,
have
so the
available?
last time we did Monterey, and they had almost zero water. Pacific Grove has almost zero water as well. They've got .155. acre feet. And so the last letter that we accepted on behalf of MST was that if in fact, and so there's a 5-year review period too, so there was a little bit of betting that the desal plant would be online and there'd be water to allocate. The letter that we had from the city of Monterey that we accepted said that they would debit the account from the first available water. So when new water is allocated to the jurisdiction, in Monterey's case, then they would debit it. So you give them 10, but you take away 1 or whatever the difference is. And that's what we would apply in this case as well.
So to follow that up, Pacific Grove actually has water, quote, available, but it has not been allocated yet because of their recycled water plant.
Right.
Okay.
Any further questions from the board? Okay, if the applicant, if you wanted to say anything.
Members of the board, good evening. My name's Mike Zimmerman. I'm with Foursome Development Company, who's the owner of the American Tin Cannery site. This has been a redevelopment site that we've been working on with the city of Pacific Grove for about 4 years now. 4 years, going on 4 years. About 4 years ago, the site was the subject of a successful ballot initiative to expand the zoning to specifically permit a hotel. Foursome has entered into an agreement with Comstock Housing, Inc., who is currently doing due diligence in determining the feasibility of developing a hotel on the site. They've been working hard at it, spending money, and they need to make sure that they have the ability to go forward. And our request is for special consideration under Rule 24E and the opportunity to design a project to operate within the allocation. We're committed to engaging design and engineering professionals to incorporate water-saving features and processes in the proposed project that are in excess of current district requirements. The goal will be to credibly document the ability to operate the project within the current allotment. Some of the initial thoughts were included in the letter in your package, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more once we get the true professionals involved. And our intent is to work closely with district staff to ensure that whatever concerns there are addressed timely and to everyone's satisfaction. And we have the representatives of Comstock Housing, Inc., the potential developer, if anybody's got any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to discuss this matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Any additional comments or questions?
I just have one additional. Is there an idea of the order of magnitude of water use for this site from the factors? So to get an idea of how much would be brought down or need to be brought down from this? I mean, is it a matter of reducing it by half an acre foot or
No,
6 acre feet,
so
or
a hotel, I think when we looked at it before, it'd be in mid-20s, depending on your other ancillary facilities, banquets, and so forth. So it's, probably about a third over, just call it 26, and they have 18 on site.
Okay, thank you.
Something like that.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that I think this is the kind of project, especially like the Sunset Retirement Home, this is the kind of project we want to move forward, and I think it benefits the district in having documentation for what some of the water uses are and what factors should be used for those.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Lewis?
Am I correct in understanding that only one of these 6 factors has to be met?
Yeah, excuse me, enough to bring it down. So if they can come up with the design that gets it squarely within that 18.53 acre feet using 3 innovative approaches or all 6, whatever's most cost effective and believable in looking at a water demand and efficiency report. But yeah, if they can do it on just one big thing, we would accept that.
Thank you for the clarification.
I'd like to move approval. Oh,
Sorry, Dean. We will see that report before issuing the permit,
Yeah.
correct?
I move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a
Second.
Sorry. I yield.
We have a motion from Director Burns, seconded by Director Evans. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 18, consider of appointment of Director Evans to the position of Vice Chair of the Board.
It's pretty straightforward, just keeping our succession planning moving, given the announced retirement of the mayoral rep, which means we'll have a vacancy for who can step into the chair position, because the mayoral rep won't be named probably till January, February, and will not have the requisite 12 months of experience to sit as chair. Therefore, the next position in line would be Division 3, which is Director Evans' spot. So to just facilitate that, the mayor would not step down from the board, but he would step down from vice chair, so that we have the then sitting vice chair at the December meeting ready to ascend to chair.
Any questions from the board? Okay, open public comment on this item. Seeing none, I'll close public comment.
Make motion.
Move approval.
Second.
I'll go motion Director Rubio, second Director Bauer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? Motion passes. Item number 19, specify a method for selection of the director to fill the vacancy in voter district number 5, and consider extension of the deadline for statements of interest and qualification.
And these are really two separate actions that kind of got put into one that probably should have separated, so you can treat them separately. The filling of a vacant director position is a two-step process. You have to, as a board, determine whether you want to call for a special election or do an appointment. And once you've made that decision, then it sets the wheels in motion for the timeline. If it's an appointment, we need to have that appointment made within 60 days of the effective date, and Director Brower's effective date is tomorrow, close of business. That would put us into about December 15th. If it's a special election, you would need to call for that, and we would work out a date with the registrar within that 60-day period. The election would not have to be in that 60-day period, but we would have to set the date within the 60-day period. The recommendation, of course, is it's never comfortable to have an election right after an election. It's not cost-effective to do so, and the appointments that we've done in the past seem to have worked out with good, viable candidates. So the goal, if you do an appointment, we've already called for statements of interest, and hopefully you attract a good pool, and then the board or a subcommittee of the board can decide what to do with that pool before the next board meeting.
So any questions on the process? So we're going to take this one step at a time, where we have a choice to either make a call for an appointment or set a date for an election, which we could do those things today. If for some reason we can't get 4 of our sitting board members to choose an appointment, we could always call for a special election within that 60-day period. Otherwise, it goes to Ms. Adams and her colleagues to make the decision. If they can't make a decision, then we get to do an election anyways. So is there a sense on the board what we want to do? Any questions about the
Is
process?
this a public comment period?
It's just questions if we have any questions.
If we were to choose to go to an election, what would the cost be?
Well, it was about 100, and, what is it? 40,000. 40,000.
Thank you.
Okay, since there's no questions, I'll
I
look
have
up.
one question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't be able to appoint someone within the allotted time?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
It's up to us as the board member to.
So
get
would there
4
be any
votes,
reason why an extension would be necessary?
So the separate concept of the extension came up based on the current election cycle in the division, and as I investigated it further, it's really just the city of Carmel. I thought maybe there were some more positions, but there was a sitting candidate in Carmel who said, could you keep it open until after the election? in case he or she is not reelected or wins the seat, I guess, is where that comes from. And then I had a candidate from the city of Monterey say, you should keep it open because there might be people who want to serve who don't win their seat. And that's when I kind of looked at it, and you got 3 candidates running for 2 city council seats and 3 mayoral candidates running for 1 mayoral seat. So there's not a whole lot of numbers of bodies who might be in this pool. Nevertheless, it was a question that was asked, so I thought I'd bring it to you. Because to date, we've published an October 31st deadline for statements of qualifications.
Okay, and we have received some interest?
We have 4 stated parties and, well, actually 5 with interest, and I know that there are folks out beating the bushes. I sent both the formal notice that Arlene prepared as well as the press release to the Carmel Chamber, the Carmel Valley Chamber, Carmel Valley Association, to Supervisor Adams' office, the City of Carmel, and it also hit the Pine Cone and it hit the Herald, so there's some awareness. Also sent it to MCHA's Government Affairs person who was here earlier. So, we think it's out there enough that people are, looking for candidates, so.
Okay, so tonight we're deciding on whether or not to extend,
And whether to appoint.
whether to elect or appoint.
I have an additional question.
Got it?
Just for the record, could you describe the parameters of the district where the applicant would have to live?
Sure. Basically, City of Carmel, and then Carmel Valley, all the way up to approximately below Kashawa.
Kajawa,
Yeah.
And then north all the way to 68.
North up over the hill to
Over the
68.
hill,
Yeah,
right.
in the
Oh, you mean
Hidden
over
Hills
the
area.
grade?
Over the grade.
Yeah.
And then how about down the coast?
It ends at our
Carmel
boundary.
Island, just before
El
Carmel
Paso.
Islands.
Yeah, like Malpaso Creek, right about that, yeah.
So the extension is just to go just past the election day?
Right. We close it the day after the election.
Right, right.
So, and again, I'd like to do 2 motions, because the second extending becomes moot if we move to do an election, so.
I'd like to move that we do this by
Well, let
appointment.
me
No,
do
you do
public
not.
comment.
You just go out for public comment.
So I'm going to have public comment on this item.
Good evening. Judy Lehman. Questions, I guess, are, it appears that you're going to be doing an appointment, and if not, then an election. The appointment will be done with the existing sitting board, yet you'll have an election with results, and those people who are elected will not be participating in determining who's going to be appointed to the board. It seems like the problem is the 60 days from the letter of resignation, and if there was a way to have Mr. Brower extend that date to November, your meeting, then you would have 60 days that would take you into the 1st of January. And you would have then a newly appointed or elected, board that would be able to make that determination. The other option is to go to Supervisor Adams and ask that the supervisors suggest a dispensation or an extension of the 60 days due to the fact that it's so close to the proximity of the final vote for the election to the position. So I hope that there'll be some other suggestions for options, but it seems like there's kind of a conflict as far as appointing somebody with people who are not going to be serving on the board and having new people be elected who are not going to be able to participate in the appointment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay.
Can I ask?
If I could respond, have you closed the public comment?
I'm closing it right now.
Okay. As to both points Ms. Lehman raises, unfortunately, that's not available. The 60 days is absolute. That's set by the election code. The Board of Supervisors has no prerogative to extend it. And Mr. Brower's resignation, there's ample case law that once that resignation has been delivered, he can't pull that back. He has resigned, and he can't extend that date either. So as to both, the law is settled, that the date of the vacancy is now known, and the time period within which this board can act is set by law.
We'll make a motion to appoint.
I still have another question, sorry. So I just want to ask, as far as the board not making a decision to extend it, you said that that's governed by election code. Is that county or state code?
That's state law. And as I understand, though, the concept of the extension is how long this board would entertain applications to appoint.
Yeah, I think we're mixing two words, but the concept was raised by the speaker to extend the appointment to the point where the new board would make the appointment.
That's absolute.
Right.
That's the 60-day window that begins on the effective date of the resignation or the vacancy, and it extends throughout that term. And this board can then act any time within that 60 days. You're publishing notice as to how long someone will have an opportunity to file an application, and that's the debate here.
That's the other extension, which is just.
Which we're tabling until after we make a decision about appointment or election.
Another question? Sorry, I'm sorry. I have another question about this. I'm just curious about how this all works. So if in fact we agreed that we would do an appointment and we could not agree, then what else falls into place then?
If you don't agree, you can continue meeting throughout that 60-day period. You can have special meetings. The task will be to get 4 affirmative votes for an appointment. And if you cannot get that 4th vote for an appointee, then the authority of this board to appoint lapses, and then that's put into the Board of Supervisors domain, and the Board of Supervisors has that same dilemma to appoint by majority vote, but only for 30 days. And if it does not act within 30 days, it comes back to this board for one action only, and that is to set the date of election.
So to set the date for election, it could not
You do not
be
have a
appointed
new
then?
appointment window.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining that. Thank you.
I did, but.
Can I vote on this, Counselor, or no?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Oh, that's right, just can't vote
Yeah.
on this.
You can't vote on your replacement, but you can vote on the process.
On how?
Okay, I'm going to close discussion. I'll take a motion.
I move appointment.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion, Mayor. Second, Director Lewis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I would make a motion to extend it to the day after the election.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. So now we have a motion to, you want to extend the deadline for applicants from
Right.
October 31st to November 7th?
Right.
Can I ask a question before we go there? Now, could possibly these folks that are involved in these races submit an application prior to the election and pull it if they, win their election, because they would be prohibited from serving?
So I actually asked that question of one of the candidates, and the concern there was this particular candidate didn't want to signal that, if I'm interested in this other one if it doesn't go well for me here, because of how quickly things get conflated in this environment.
Okay.
So these candidates want a safety net.
Well, I don't know, and I'm not even sure it's candidates with an S. I was told that it was on behalf of at least 2, and the third one I
Yes.
didn't realize till after the fact was just kind of lobbying on behalf of a different community, so.
So we have a motion by Director Byrne to extend it to November 7th. Is there a second? So that motion dies. So
Okay, so there will be no extension.
that's the way it
So
is.
the date then is what date?
October 31st.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have
Which I
our-
might add is going to be something where you're going to need a little bit of time as a board to determine how you want to process those applicants, so you gain a little by keeping with the date, just so you know.
Okay. So that concludes item 19. We have the informational items and staff reports in the packet. And I'd like to adjourn our meeting tonight in honor of past Chair Director Brower for his 11 years of stellar service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was very special. Special.
Thank you much.
It is.